Chapter 14. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Chapter 14. Cornelius Fudge. Harry, Ron, and Hermione had always known that Hagrid had their unfortunate liking for large and monstrous creatures. During their first year at Hogwarts, he had tried to raise a dragon in his little wooden house, and it would be a long time before they forgot the giant three-headed dog he's christened it Fluffy. And if, as a boy, Hagrid had heard that a monster was hidden somewhere in the castle, Harry was sure he would have gone into any length of the glimpse of it. He would probably thought it was a shame that the monster had been cooped up so long and thought it deserved a chance to stretch his many leg. Harry could just imagine the 13 years old Hagrid trying to fiddle, lead, and collar on it, but he was equally certain that Hagrid would never have meant to kill anybody. Harry half wished he hadn't found out how to work Riddle Diary. Again and again, Ron and Hermione made him recount what he had seen, and he was heartily sick of telling them and sick of the long circle conversation that followed. Riddle might have got the wrong person, said Hermione. Maybe it was some other monster that was attacking people. How many monsters do you think this place can hold? Ron asked cruelly. We always knew Hagrid has been expelled, said Harry miserably, and the attack must have stopped after Hagrid was kicked out. Otherwise, Riddle would have got us a word. Wouldn't have got us a word. It's a word. Ron tried a different tack. Riddle does sound like Percy. Who asked him on grass on Hagrid anyway? But the monster had killed someone, Ron, said Hermione, and Riddle was going to go back to some Muggle orphanage if they close Hogwarts, said Harry. I don't blame him for wanting to stay here. Ron bit his lip and said tentatively, You met Hagrid down Nocturne Alley, didn't you, Harry? He was buying a flesh-eating slug repellent, said Harry quickly. The three of them fell silent. For a long pause, Hermione voiced the naughtiest question of all in a hesitation voice. Do you think we should go and ask Hagrid about it all? That would be a cheerful visit. Hagrid, tell us if you've been seeing anything Matt and Harry lose in the castle lately. In the end, they decided they wouldn't say anything to Hagrid unless there was another attack, and as more and more Hagrid but no whisper from the disembodied voice. They became hopeful that they would never talk to him about why he had been expelled. It was nearly 4 months since why he had been expelled. It was now nearly 4 months since Justin and Headless Nick had been petrified, and nearly everybody seemed to think of the attack, whoever it was, had retired for good. Peepito finally got bored of his "Oh Porter, You Rotter" song. Ernie Macmillan asked Harry quite politely to pass a bucket of leaping toadstool and herbology one day. Then he marched several mandrakes through a loud and raucous party and Greenhouse 3. This made Professor Sprout very happy. The moment they're starting to move into each other's pots, you'll know they're fully mature, she told Harry. Then we'll be able to revive those poor people in the hospital wing. In the second year, we're given something new to think about during their Easter holiday. This time had come to choose their subject for the third years. A matter that Hermione at least took it very seriously. It could affect our whole future, she told Harry and Ron as they pored over a list of new subjects, marking them with ticks. I just want to give up potions, said Harry. We can't, said Ron gloomily. We kept all old subject, or I've ditched defense against the dark art. But that's very important, said Hermione, shocked. Not the way Lockhart teaches it, said Ron. I haven't learned anything from him except not to set pixies looses. Nimble Longbottom had been sent a letter from all the witches and wizards in his family, all giving different advice on what to choose. Confused and worried, he sat reading the subject list with his tongue poking, asking people whether they thought arithmetic sounded more difficult than the study of ancient runes. Dean Thomas, who like Harry had grown up with muggles, ended up closing his eye and jabbing his wand at the list. Then, picking the subject it had landed on, Hermione took nobody advices, but signed up for everything. Smiled grimly to himself at the thought of that Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia would say if he tried to discuss his career in wizardry for them. Now that he didn't get any guidance, Percy Weasley was eager to share his experiments. Depend where you want to go, Harry. It'll never too early to think about the future. Never too early to think about the future. So recommend a division. People say Muggle study is soft option, but I personally think wizards should have through understanding the non-magical community, particularly if they're thinking of working in close contact with them. Like my father, he used to deal with Muggle business at all time. My brother my brother Charlie was always more of an outdoor type, so he went for care of magical creature. Play to your strengths, Harry. But the only thing Harry felt he was really good at was Quidditch. In the end, he chose the same new subject as Ron, feeling that he was rubbish at them. At least he'd have someone friendly to help him. Gryffindor next Quidditch match would be against Hufflepuff. Will was insisting on team practice every night after dinner, so that Harry barely had time for anything but Quidditch and homework. However, the training session began better, or at least drier, and evening before Saturday match, he went up to his demontory to drop off his broomstick, feeling Gryffindor's chance for Quidditch Cup had never been better. But his cheerful mood didn't last long. At the top of the stair to the demontory, he met Neville Longbottom, who was looking frantic. Harry, I don't know who did it. I just found watching Harry fearfully. Neville pushed open the door. The content of Harry's trunk had been thrown everywhere. His cloak lay ripped on the floor. The bedcloth had been pulled up on his four-poster, and the drawer had been pulled up at his bedside cabinet. The contents strewn over the mattress. Harry walked over to the bed, open mouthed, treading on a few loose pages of travel with Schultz. As he and Neville pulled the blanket back onto his bed, Dean Seamus came in. Dean swore loudly. Not what happened, Harry? No idea, said Harry, but Ron was examining Harry's robes. All the pocket was hanging out. Someone been looking for something, said Ron. Is there anything missing? Harry started to pick up all things and throw into his trunk. It was only through the last of the locker book back into it that he realized that what wasn't there. Real diary's gone, he said in an undertone to Ron. What? Harry jerked his head toward the demontory, and Ron followed him out. They hurried back into the Gryffindor common room, which was half empty, and joined Hermione, who was sitting alone reading a book called Ancient Runes Made Easy. Hermione looked against the news. But only Gryffindor could have stolen. Nobody else know our password. Exactly, said Harry. They woke next day to a brilliant sunshine and a light, refreshing breeze. Perfect Quidditch condition, said Wood atheistically at the Gryffindor table, loading the team's plate with the scrambled eggs. Harry, bug up there. You need a decent breakfast. He had been staring down the packed Gryffindor table, wondering if he knew owner of Riddle Diary was right in front of his eyes. Hermione had been urging him to report the robbery, but Harry didn't like the idea. He would have to tell the teacher all about their diary and how many people knew why Hagrid had been expelled 50 years ago. He didn't want to be the one who brought it all up again. As he left the Great Hall with Ron and Hermione, go and collected his Quidditch sting, another very serious worry was added to Harry's growing list. He just set foot on the marble staircase when he heard it again. Kill this time. Let me rip, tear. He shouted aloud, and Ron and Hermione both jump away from it in alarm. The voice, said Harry, looking over his shoulder. I just heard it. Again, didn't you? Ron shook his head, wide eyes. Hermione, however, clapped a hand to her forehead. Harry, I think I've understood something. I've got to go to the library. And she sprinted away up the stairs. What does she understand? Said Harry distractedly, still looking around, trying to tell where the voice had come from. Loads more than I do, said Ron, shaking his head. But why she got to the library? Because that's what Hermione does, said Ron, shrugging. When in doubt, go to the library. Harry stood irresolute, trying to catch the voice again, but people were now emerging from the great hall behind him, talking loudly, exciting through front doors on their way to the Quidditch pitch. You better get moving, said Ron, It's nearly 11. The match. Harry raced up to the Gryffindor Tower, collected his Nimbus 2000, and joined the large crowd storming across the ground. But his mind was still in the castle, along with a bodiless voice as he pulled on the scarlet robes in the changing room. His only comfort was that everyone was now outside to watch the game. The team walked onto the pitch to tumultuous applause. Oliver Woods take up the wrap worm of flakes around the goalpost. Madam Hooch released the ball. The Hufflepuff, who played in the canary yellow, were standing in the huddle, having a last-minute discussion of tactics. Harry was just mounting his broom when Professor McGonagall came half marching, half running across the pitch, carrying an enormous purple megaphone. Harry's heart dropped like a stone. This match has been cancelled, Professor McGonagall called through the megaphone, addressing the packed stadium. There were boos and shouted. Oliver Wood, looking devastated, landed and ran toward Professor McGonagall without getting off his broomstick. But Professor, he shouted, we've got to play the cup, Gryffindor. Professor McGonagall ignored him and continued to shout through a megaphone. All students are to make their way back to the house common room, where the heads of the house will give them further information as quickly as they can, please. And she lowered the megaphone and beckoned Harry over her. Porter, I think you'd better come with me. Wondering how she could possibly suspect him this time, Harry saw Ron detach him from the complaining crowd. He came running to them as they set off toward the castle. To Harry's surprise, Professor McGonagall didn't object. Yes, perhaps you'd better come too, Weasley. Some of the students were swarming around them, were grumbling about the match being cancelled. Others looking worried. Harry and Ron followed Professor McGonagall back into school and up the marble staircase. But they weren't taken to anybody's office this time. This would be a little bit of a shock, said Professor McGonagall in a surprisingly gentle voice as they approached the hospital wing. There had been another attack, another double attack. Harry inside did a horrible somersault. Professor McGonagall pushed the door open, and he and Ron entered. Madame Pomfrey was bending over a sixth-year scholar with a long, curly hair. Harry recognized her as the Ravenclaw, though accidentally asked for direction to the Slytherin common rooms. And on the bed next to her was Hermione! Ron groaned. Hermione lay utterly still, her eyes open, glassy. They were found near the library, said Professor McGonagall. I don't suppose either of you can explain this. It was on the floor next to them. She was holding a small circular mirror. Harry and Ron shook their head, both staring at Hermione. I'll escort you back to the Gryffindor Tower, said Professor McGonagall heavily. I need to address the student in any cases. All students will return to their house common room by 6 o'clock in the evening. No student is to leave their dormitories after this time. You'll be escorted to each lesson by a teacher. No student is used the bathroom unaccompanied by a teacher. All for the Quidditch training and matches are to postpone it. There will be no more evening activities. The Gryffindor pack inside the common rooms. Listen to Professor McGonagall in silence. She rolled up the parchment from which she had been reading and said in a somewhat choked voice, I need hardly add that I have rarely been so distressed. It is likely that the school will be closed unless the culprit behind these attacks is caught. I would urge anyone who thinks they might know anything about them to come forward. She climbed somewhat awkwardly the portrait hole, and the Gryffindor began talking immediately. That's 2 Gryffindor down, not counting a Gryffindor ghost, 1 Ravenclaw, and 1 Hufflepuff, said the Weasley twin friend, Lee Jordan, counting on his finger. Haven't any of the teachers noticed that the Slytherin are all safe? Isn't it obvious all this stuff coming from the Slytherin? The hair Slytherin, the monster of Slytherin. Why don't they just chunk all the Slytherin out? He roared. To not and scatter applause. Percy Weasley was sitting in a chair behind Lee, but for once he didn't seem too keen to make his view heard. He was looking pale and stunned. Percy in shock. George told Harry quietly, "That's Ravenclaw girl, Penelope Clearwater. She's a prefect. I don't think he thought the monster would dare attack a prefect." But Harry was only half listening. He didn't seem to be able to get rid of the picture of Hermione laying in the hospital wing as they recovered out of his stone. And if the culprit wasn't caught soon, he was looking a lifetime back with the Dursley. Tom Riddle had turned Hagrid because he was faced with the prospect of the Muggle orphanage if the school closed. Harry now knew exactly how he had felt. "What are we going to do?" said Ron quietly in Harry's ears. "Do you think they suspect Hagrid? We've got to go and talk to him," said Harry, making his mind. "I can't believe it's him this time. I bet if he set the monster loose last time, he'll know how to get inside the Chamber of Secret, and that's a start." "But McGonagall said we've only stay in our tower unless we're in class. I think," said Harry more quietly still, "it's time to get my dad's old cloak out again." Harry had inherited just one thing from his father, long and silvery invisibility cloak. It was their only chance of sneaking out of the school to visit Hagrid without anyone knowing about it. They went to bed at usual time, waited until Neville, Dean, and Seamus stopped discussing the Chamber of Secret, and finally fallen asleep, then got up, dressed again, and threw the cloak over themselves. Their journey through the dark and deserted castle corridor was enjoyable. Harry had wandered the castle at night several times before, and never had been so crowded after sunset. Teacher, prefect, and ghosts were marching the corridor in pairs, staring around for any unusual activities. Their invisibility cloak didn't stop them making any noise, and there was a particularly tense moment that when Ron stubbed his toe only a yard from the spot where Snape was standing guard. Thankfully, Snape sneezed at almost timed the moment Ron swore. It was with a relief that they almost reached the oak front door and eased them open. It was a clear, starry night. They hurried toward the light window of Hagrid house and pulled up the cloak only when they were right outside his front door. Second, after they had knocked, Hagrid flung it open. They found themselves face to face with him aiming a crossbow at them. Fang, the boarhouse, barking loudly behind him. "Oh," he said, lowering the weapon and staring at them. "What are you two doing here?" "What's that for?" said Harry, pointing at the crossbow as they stepped inside. Nothing," Harry muttered. "I've been expecting it. Doesn't matter. Sit down. I'll make teas." Harry, he hardly seemed to know what he was doing. He nearly extinguished the fire, spilling water from the kettle on it, and then smashed the teapot with a nervous jerk of his massive hand. "Are you okay, Hagrid?" said Harry. "Did you hear about Hermione?" "Oh, I heard all right," said Hagrid, in a slight break in his voice. He kept glancing nervously at the window. He poured them both a large mug of boiling water. He had forgotten to add tea bag, and was just putting a scab of fruitcake on the plate when there was a loud knock on the door. Hagrid dropped his fruitcake. Harry and Ron exchanged panic-stricken look, and then threw the invisibility cloak back over themselves and retreated into a corner. Hagrid checked that they were hidden, seized his crossbow, and flung open his door once more. "Good evening, Hagrid." It was Dumbledore. He entered looking deadly serious, and was followed by a second, very odd-looking man. The stranger was a short, portly man with a rumpled grey hair and an anxious expression. He was wearing a strange mixture of clothes, a pin-striped suit, a scarlet tie, a long black cloak, and pointed purple boots. Under his arm he carried a lime green bowler. "That's Dad Boss," Ron breathed. "Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic." Harry elbowed Ron to make him shut up. Hagrid had gone pale and sweaty. He dropped into one of his chairs and looked from Dumbledore to Cornelius Fudge. "Bad business, Hagrid," said Fudge in rather clipped tones. "Very bad business had to come for attack on Muggleborn. Things have gotten too far enough. Ministry got to act." "I never," said Hagrid, looking imploringly at Dumbledore. "You know I never, Professor Dumbledore." "Sir, I want it understood, Cornelius, that Hagrid has my full confidence," said Dumbledore, frowning at Fudge. "Look, Albus," said Fudge uncomfortably. "Hagrid recorded against him. Ministry got to do something. The school governors have to be in touch. Yet again, Cornelius, I tell you that taking Hagrid away will not help him in the slightest," said Dumbledore. His blue eyes were full of fire, and Harry had never seen before. "Look at it from my point of view," said Fudge, fidgeting with his bowler. "I'm under a lot of pressure. I got to be seen doing something. If it turned out it wasn't Hagrid, he'll be back and no more said. But I've got to take him. Got to. Wouldn't be doing my duty." "Take me?" said Harry, who was trembling. "Take me where?" "For a short stretch only," said Fudge, not meeting Hagrid's eyes. "Not a punishment, Hagrid, but more appreciation. If someone else caught, you'll be let out with a full apology." "Not Azkaban?" croaked Hagrid. Before Fudge could answer, there was another loud rap on the door. Dumbledore answered it. It was Harry, turned for an elbow in the ribs. He let an audible gasp. Miss Lucius Malfoy strode in Hagrid's hut, swathed in a long black traveling cloak, smiling a cold and satisfied smile. Fang started to growl. "Already here, Fudge," he said approvingly. Good, good. What are you doing here?" said Hagrid fiercely. "Get out of my house." "My dear man, please believe me, I've no such at all in being inside your, do you call this a house?" said Lucius Malfoy, sneering as he looked around the small cabin. "I simply called at the school, and I was told that the headmaster was here." "And what exactly did you want with me, Lucius?" said Dumbledore. He spoke politely, but the fire was still blazing in his blue eyes. "Dreadful things, Dumbledore," said Mr. Malfoy, lazily taking out the long roll of parchment. "But the governor feels it's time for you to step aside. This is an order of succession. You'll find all 12 signatures in it. I'm afraid we feel you're losing your touch. How many attacks have been there now? 2 more this afternoon, wasn't it? At this rate, there will be no more Muggleborn left at Hogwarts. We all know that an awful loss it would be to the school." "Oh, and now, see here, Lucius," said Fudge, looking alarmed. "Dumbledore suspended. No, last thing we want just now, the appointment or suspension of the headmaster. It's a matter of governors, Fudge," said Mr. Malfoy smoothly. "And as Dumbledore had failed to stop these attacks, now look, Lucius, if Dumbledore can't stop them," said Fudge, whose upper lip was sweating now, "I mean to say, who can?" There remained to be seen Mr. Malfoy with a nasty smile. "But as all 12 of us voted," Hagrid leapt to his feet, his shaggy black raising the ceiling. "And how many did you have to threaten to blackmail before they agreed, Malfoy, eh?" he roared. Dear, you know that temper will lead into trouble one of these days, Hagrid, said Mr. Malfoy. I would advise not you to shout at the Azkaban guard like that. They won't like it at all. Dear, you can't take Dumbledore, yelled Hagrid, making Fang pour out cover and whimper in his basket. Take him away, and the Muggle won't stand a chance. No, we'll be killing next. Calm yourself, Hagrid, said Dumbledore sharply. He looked at Lucius Malfoy. If the governor wanted removal, Lucius, I shall of course step aside. But, stuttered Fudge. No, growled Hagrid. Dumbledore had taken his bright blue eyes off his Lucius Malfoy cold grey one. However, said Dumbledore, speaking very slowly and clearly, so none of them could miss a word, you'll find that I will only truly have left this school when none here are loyal to me. You'll also find that help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. For a second, Harry was almost sure that Dumbledore's eyes flickered toward the corner where he and Ron stood hidden. Admirable testament, said Mr. Malfoy, bowing. We shall all miss your highly individual way of running things, Albus, and only hope that your successor will manage to prevent any killings. We strode to the cabin door, opened it, and bowed Dumbledore out of him. But Hagrid stood his ground, took a deep breath, and said carefully, if anyone wants to find out some stuff, all they'll have to do is follow the spider. That's lead 'em straight. That's all I'm saying. Fudge stared at it in amazement. All right, I'm coming, said Hagrid, pulling on his moleskin overcoat. But as he was about to follow Fudge through the door, he stopped again and said loudly, and someone will need to feed Fang while I'm away. The door banged shut, and Ron pulled out the invisibility cloak off. We're in trouble now, he said hoarsely. No Dumbledore. They might as well close the school tonight. There'll be an attack a day with him gone. Fang started howling and scratching on the closed door.